Not everything you think is going to happen actually happens. We start with 3 camp surprises heading into the first joint practice and preseason game here on Locked On Patriots.
You are Locked On Patriots, your daily New England Patriots podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Patriots fans? I'm your host, Nick Cattles, born and raised in New England, host of the Everything Pats podcast, co-host of the Greg Bedard Patriots podcast with Nick Cattles, and a veteran sports talk show host. On today's episode, there are actually good football players who might not make this team. We'll give you 3 of our endangered vets, and we also list 3 important things we're looking out for in Vrabel's first joint practice. But first, let's talk surprises. We all love surprises. We appreciate you joining the show, making us your first listen, and for being an everydayer. The Locked On Patriots podcast, a proud partner of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. It is completely justifiable to pay most of your attention during this camp season on Drake May. We've all talked about how critical his development is in this process of trying to get to being a competitive team. It's also justifiable to put a lot of your attention towards the free agency class. Those guys were brought in for good reason, trying to improve this roster, some fun names to talk about. And it's also justifiable to discuss the 2025 NFL draft, especially the guys who were picked in the top 100. It's a very exciting class, and a number of those guys are already making an impact in this camp. So it's justifiable to talk about all of that. May, free agency, the draft picks in the top 100. But I think as we pay so much attention to those 3 buckets, we're missing out on some of the surprises of this camp. And there have been some surprises. I want to start on the defensive edge. Mike Reese posted, watching undrafted outside linebacker Elijah Ponder from Cal Poly in one-on-one pass rush drills, and his ability to bend the edge sparks the desire to see more of him in team drills. The 6'3", 261-pound Ponder gave 4 backup offensive tackles all they could handle. Now, I know some of you might be screaming at me already. Backup offensive tackles, Nick. Of course he's burning backup offensive tackles. Hold on. Wait a minute. You get the opportunities to play the ones. You get opportunities in joint practice and in the preseason games. You get better opportunities by beating the guys who are in front of you one-on-one. If you can take the best of the backup offensive tackles, shove it back in their face, win those battles, then you should theoretically take a step to the next level. You can only control what you can control, do what you can do. And Elijah Ponder, yeah, he's going against backup tackles, but if he was losing against those backup tackles, we wouldn't be having this conversation. He wouldn't be discussed. He has to take advantage of what's in front of him, step by step. And he's been doing that early in camp. Evan Lazar recently wrote about Ponder. Ponder is an undrafted rookie making a push based on his impressive reps and one-on-ones. Ponder posted 7 sacks and 38 total pressures in his final collegiate season, including 5 pressures versus Stanford, so he can rush the passer. On Monday, the undrafted rookie had 3 wins, quote-unquote, in one-on-one drills over Demontre Jacobs, UDFA tackle Jack Conley, and veteran Vidarian Lowe. He then drew against Marcus Bryant, holding his own in all 4 reps he was given in one-on-ones. Surely Ponder will get plenty of snaps in the preseason, allowing for a closer look at his 11-on-11 abilities. And that's what this is all about. He's going against guys that at draft time were considered at or near his level. Marcus Bryant, 7th-round pick. I believe Vidarian Lowe was a 6th-round pick. You can look that up, but I'm pretty confident he was a 6th-round pick. Demontre Jacobs, UDFA Jack Conley. That's at the level or near the level of what you would anticipate from Ponder because he himself is an undrafted free agent from Cal Poly. And Ponder fitting along with the rest of this pass rush, it has been a pleasant surprise. The entire pass rush. Calebon Chason has had a wonderful camp. Harold Landry has had very good moments. Christian Barmore has been one of the most, standout players during this camp. Keion White has been absolutely fantastic for most of this camp. And even more guys on that defensive line are showing up. The pass rush has been legit, and Ponder, at least in the one-on-one scenarios, has been a part of that. He'll turn 23 years old in a couple of weeks. And when we talk about somebody like Ponder, we're just talking about potential. Cal Poly, obviously not a powerhouse in college football. We're talking about the potential of Ponder. We're talking about a need for the Patriots. We discussed this during the offseason. We discussed this throughout OTAs and mandatory minicamp. They're going to need as much pass rush as possible. So when you find somebody who has that quote-unquote bend like Ponder does, it stands out to you. And, when you play for a defense like Mike Vrabel and Terrell Williams' defense that absolutely loves and borderline obsesses over guys who are on the edge with that electric first step, Ponder's showing that means something. Ponder's relative athletic score was 9.7 from 0 to 10. That's pretty good. Let's jump to somebody else. Marcus Bryant is making a push during this early camp. Back to Evan Lazar, who writes, Bryant has quietly begun to increase his involvement. Following a solid showing in one-on-ones, the rookie seventh rounder got the nod over Jacobs for the first time in Monday's session. Bryant had wins over pass rushers Truman Jones and Braden Swinson to finish 2-1-1 in one-on-ones on Monday. Plus, he didn't look out of place pass protecting at right tackle in team drills. Lazar also posted this from Tuesday's walkthrough. Bryant is getting some reps, suggests they could get an opportunity. He can get an opportunity with the top offense in Wednesday's joint practice. Today, right now, I would say Marcus Bryant is on your 53-man roster. He's on the roster right now. Just look at the tackle depth. Caden Wallace moves to guard. What do you have at tackle? Vidarian Lowe just got off PUP. Not really sure what we have there as far as him being physically capable of doing much. We'll see. Obviously, past the physical. Have to do that to get off PUP. But how far along is he? The next week or two will tell us an awful lot. Then you look at the right side. We know what Demontre Jacobs is. Wasn't very good last year. Kind of, somebody who you're working with as a project. And I think Bryant is right along those same lines. When you look at the raw potential of just his size, 6'7", 320 pounds, his athleticism, again, 8.9 in the relative athletic score. At 6'7", 320, an 8.9 RAS is pretty darn good. And he played left tackle in college for Missouri. Armand Membu was the right tackle. So we know he can play left tackle. At least he's experienced there. And now he's starting to tinker with the right side. So maybe he brings you a little bit of versatility. Here's another surprise. It's a quick one. Don't want to glaze your eyes over on special teams, but Andy Borregales, he was drafted in the 6th round, and many Patriots fans lost their minds that the team drafted a kicker in the 6th round. Well, what we have is a legitimate kicking competition in camp. Andrew Callahan posted this on Monday. Nobody giving an inch in the Patriots kicker competition. Parker Romo and Andy Borregales both 4 of 4 on field goals, hitting up to 54 yards. Neither kicker has missed a field goal in the last 5+ practices. You know what I say? 2's better than 1. I'd rather have 2 kickers that actually look like they can do the job than 1 kicker. I'd rather have 2 kickers that look like they could do the job than having 0 kickers looking like they can actually do the job. We went through some nightmares. We lived through the Chad Ryland experience in 2023. Grateful to see you on the other side of that. So I'm okay with the kicker competition. Make everyone on this football team earn their spot. Kicker, long snapper, don't care. Back-to-back 4-win seasons. I want you to win your job, to earn your job, to deserve the spot that you get. So a lot of times we talk about iron sharpening iron on the offensive line and defensive lines. Maybe we got some kicker iron versus iron here. And maybe, just maybe, Borregales is feeling a little bit of heat because Romo did well and has been doing well. I'm all for it. I know it's kickers, but I'm all for it. It's a big week for 3 endangered vets on this roster. We'll tell you who and why next as we continue with today's episode of Locked On Patriots, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, fantasy, I'm talking Yahoo, turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. You might be playing on Yahoo Fantasy. Well, tell your friends. They should be doing the same thing, whether they're a first-timer or a veteran making their millionth league. To celebrate 28 years, think about that. Yahoo Fantasy has been around for 28 years. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now's the time to get your league together. Give this new mode a try. If you're more into classics, cool. You can still play in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. 3 vets on this team could be gone by camp's end, maybe even more, because this team is better than last year's team. You can look at this 53-man roster. I've been looking at all the projections from Greg Bedard and Mark Daniels and Doug Kyed and others. It's a legitimate football roster. Last year, you had to try to find guys to put on the 53. This time, you're looking at it and you're saying, who could be gone? There are legitimate football players who could be gone from this roster by camp's end. It is a huge week for 3 guys, for these 3 guys that I'm going to give to you. Let's start with my buddy Greg Bedard, who has been writing and talking about this on our podcast. He's been writing at BSJ about Kyle Duggar and his roster spot not being safe. Bedard believes, people he's spoken to in the building, he believes that Duggar's spot is kind of up in the air. It is not a guarantee. Now, why would Duggar not be a guarantee? You start with the coverage, and he's given up some big plays during camp already. And you look back at last year, you look back at the prior seasons to that, and we know Duggar has given up plays. He has been far from flawless. He's given up some big plays in the passing game. And last year, I know he wants to chalk it up to the injury, but when you look at his history tells you that there's a bit of a lack of focus, not always fully understanding of the assignment. So that's one issue. Another issue is the safety depth. One of the deepest positions of this Patriots roster is safety. Jabril Peppers, you got Del Pettis, Jalen Hawkins, Craig Woodson, Marcus Epps. I mean, you've got 5 or 6 guys that can play safety at the NFL level. You have Brennan Schooler, who gives you some insurance as well. As we know, he's the special teams guru, but he gives you even more depth at safety because he's actually played some reps there. He's taken some snaps in real football games at safety, which gives you just a little bit more. And then Monday's practice, what we saw, we talked about this on yesterday's episode a little bit. You know, you look at Monday's practice, and Craig Woodson starts to take some snaps from Duggar, eating into Duggar's time. Now, here's my question with Duggar. I don't know if he's going to get traded. I don't know if he's going to get cut. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with how well he plays or doesn't play. In a perfect world, if somebody doesn't earn a spot, you get rid of them. You say, you weren't good enough. We're moving on. You need to be better at football. We have guys who are better at football than you are. So we've decided to make this decision. But we all know the reality. We all know the reality of professional sports. Money matters. Ownership matters. And when you sign a guy to a contract extension, like Elliott Wolf signed Duggar to last season, that could be an obstacle towards getting rid of him if the team wants to get rid of him. And so I would lean towards Duggar being gone as unlikely because of the money. Duggar this year would cost $23.25 million of dead cap. $23.25 million. However, Duggar has a potential out after this season. And the dead cap money next year is $9 million. $23.25 million of dead versus $9 million dead. I would not be surprised if Duggar keeps his job, even if he's, head to head with some of these guys that are a little bit deeper on the depth chart. I would not be surprised if he kept his gig because of that potential out in his contract, which would drop that dead cap hit significantly. So that's my question with Duggar, but I don't think it's a guarantee he's on this roster. I also don't think that Anfernee Jennings being on this roster is a given. And when you look at what you're getting from some other guys on that edge position, it makes it even more difficult for Jennings to jump in because, when you look at Anfernee Jennings, you say to yourself, the best thing he does is he stops the run. And the argument to keep Jennings on this roster is that he would be better at stopping the run than anybody else at that position. And now we're starting to look at things a little bit differently. You could look up Harold Landry's analytics last season with Tennessee, and we all talk about his pass rush win rate, but he was really good against the run. And then Keion Chason during camp, he's been good against the run, and the Patriots reportedly have not been afraid of putting Chason out there on the goal line. So if you've got Keion White, you've got Chason, you've got Landry, if you feel like all three of those guys can play good against the run, then you really have no reason to keep Anfernee Jennings, especially if you're seeing some of the pass rushing pop that we talked about with Elijah Ponder. You just drafted Braden Swinson. He's making this team. And then you have Truman Jones. You might not know much about Truman Jones, but he was a Chiefs practice squad player, 23, 24. He then jumped to the Pats practice squad in 24 as well. He ended up playing week 18 last year, which, we know what the Patriots were attempting to do week 18 last year, but he played week 18 last year. He was a captain of the Harvard football team, and he's put together a good camp. So Landry, Chason, White, Swinson, Ponder, Jones, 6 dudes. Then you get to Jennings. How many defensive ends, outside linebackers, edges are you going to carry? You ain't carrying 6 or 7, at least I don't think. And it would also lead us to the question of how much trade value, if he does have trade value, do you get with Jennings? I think it's possible you could get something for Jennings. He's a good, solid, steady defensive end, really good defending the run. He has shown a little bit of pass rush skill during this camp. But I think you could get a day 3 pick for Jennings. I don't think that's crazy. So maybe you move on. You trade him for a 5th or a 6th, and you put your eggs in Chason, Landry, White, Swinson, and probably one of Ponder or Jones. And you roll with that. Third and final endangered vet as we get ready for the joint practice and preseason game this week. It's got to be Cole Strange. Cole Strange went from your starting left guard to your 3rd string center in about 2 weeks. Life comes at you fast. And Jared Wilson, goes from not being on the field early camp to taking Strange's spot. Obviously, the coaching staff did not think Strange was doing enough to hold on to that spot. And it goes beyond that because you not only put Wilson as your starting left guard as of today, you also have Caden Wallace, and they moved Wallace from tackle to guard. And what they're telling us is they think that Wallace is better than Strange at guard. Because if they felt like Strange was better than Wallace, Strange would have stayed at left guard. Wallace would have been the 3rd guard or went back to tackle. But the fact that Wallace stayed at left guard and they moved Strange to center to be behind Ben Brown and Garrett Bradbury, You could flip that probably as of right now, right? Bradbury, then Brown, but third string center's third string center. It's not looking great right now for Strange. And he's been inconsistent most of his career. And during this camp, he's been pretty inconsistent. And inevitably, he might just end up being a Belichick guy. And this coaching staff doesn't think glowingly of him. So 3 endangered vets, keep an eye on. Duggar, Jennings, Strange. All right, I'm going to give you 3 things to watch for during this joint practice against Washington. That's coming up next as we continue with today's episode of Locked On Patriots, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, and if you're living in Boston, living in New England, you should be right now. Golf on the green or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned down at the beach. You know, I've been using FanDuel for a long time, track my favorite matchups. The app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions, fun ways to bet. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's pretty easy to get involved. And get this, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. You can even try some of these same game parlays. I love same game parlays. I love betting futures in football. Check it out. Again, you can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Camp could be long. And, you know, you're not going to circle every single date on the calendar as important. But when we got the training camp schedule, one of the first dates that we circled was, of course, August 6th, the joint practice with the Washington Commanders. Joint practices are much more important nowadays than preseason games are. Guys actually play. They actually practice. They're out there in the joint practice. They're doing work. A lot of dudes don't play in the preseason any longer. It's just not how the league rolls. So you'll have your starters out there working against other teams' starters, which is critical. And during joint practices, coaches love the fact that they can rep specific things. You know, some of the things that they're having trouble with, some of the things that they want to challenge their team with. So you've got the guys out there playing and repping. You've got these reps that are addressing specific questions about their football team. And so the joint practices, much more important. Wednesday is much more important than what will happen on Friday night. And so we got 3 things to watch for during this joint practice to get you ready. Let's begin with the offensive line. The Patriots pass rush, as we mentioned earlier in this episode, has been really good throughout camp. How much of that is the pass rush? How much of that is the offensive line? Is it 50-50, 70-30, 60-40, 80-20, 90-10? What is it? What's the break? And we'll get a better idea of that during the joint practice. Because now you've got your offensive line going against somebody else's number 1 defensive line. And of course, you have to start on the left side. This is the first chance to see Will Campbell and Jared Wilson work as a tag team combination. We don't know if they're going to be tag team champions of the world or if they're going to be forced to break up quickly. We don't know. We're all pretty optimistic. We all hope that Campbell and Wilson are the long-term answers at both those positions, but we get to see a little bit more of it now against a legitimate NFL defensive line going after it. Test Campbell, test Wilson. Do those 2 rookies pass the test? How do they look? At the end of the joint practice, are we talking about 2 rookies who struggled mightily? Are we talking about 2 rookies who kind of held their own? Are we talking about 2 rookies who exceeded expectations? The left side of the offensive line is something we're watching all year long. It starts with this joint practice now that Wilson has been moved to the top left guard. Then we've got Garrett Bradbury. You know all the questions I have about him in pass protection, and he's going to get a pretty tough test here because he's got a couple of defensive linemen that could cause some issues. Washington, you know, they've got Kinlaw, they've got Payne, some other guys in the mix. So let's see what this center position looks like against another team's pass rush. And let's check on Morgan Moses. He's been in and out of practice. That's been a management situation. I would expect Moses to get a decent amount of snaps during this joint practice. How does he hold up? How does he look? He had a really rocky start, but he's progressively gotten better throughout camp. And so it'll be interesting to see what he does during this joint practice. So offensive line, we begin there because it's been such a nightmare the last couple of seasons. I feel like you have to start with the offensive line. Secondly, let's go to the other side. Defensive line. Now, we talk about O-line, D-line, Patriots practices, who wins, why they win. I want to look at this a little bit differently as far as the defensive line. I want to start with where guys line up. Where do guys line up each and every snap? We know, according to Greg Bedard, that Keion White has played all 4 positions on the defensive line during this training camp. In one single practice, he played all 4 positions. How much is Keion White moving around? How much is Milton Williams moving around? Are you moving Christian Barmore along that defensive line? So I want to know where guys are lining up. How versatile truly is this defensive line? Was the stuff happening over the past couple of weeks? Was it happening to try things out? Or does this coaching staff actually believe that they have a lot of versatility up front? Is Keion White actually going to play all of those different positions? And this will be the first chance to watch Christian Barmore and Milton Williams against another team's offensive line. And Milton Williams, I haven't heard a ton about him. He's been okay from people that I've spoken with. He's been all right. He hasn't been a standout. He hasn't stood out like Keion White. He hasn't stood out like Barmore. Barmore, according to many reports, is having a really good camp when he's been out there. They're, of course, managing him because of his health situation from a year ago. So you got Williams and Barmore together. Can Williams get it going a little bit more? And can Barmore continue to dominate? Can this pass rush? We know that Williams and Terrell Williams and Vrabel's defense is about attacking. We've discussed, which could be a challenge against an athletic quarterback like Jaden Daniels. It could be a challenge because the old school of Belichick was try to just keep the guy in the pocket, keep him in the pocket, keep him in the pocket. Don't lose the edge. Don't go too far downfield. Try to keep contained. And this defense is more attacking. This defense is not afraid to get downfield. So when you've got Daniels, and of course you're not going to hit the quarterback during a joint practice, but will the pass rush stay responsible enough, or it doesn't matter anymore? Because I think we're going to see a lot more attacking from this defense. This is an interesting matchup to see if these edges scream down the field against a quarterback like Daniels, understanding the situation and what he can do. The old dual threat quarterback. And Washington's O-line is nothing to sniff at. They traded for Laramie Tunsil, as we know. That moved Brandon Coleman to left guard. Tyler Biadasz is their center. Now, right guard, trying to figure things out. Sam Cosme's on the PUP towards ACL in January. Nick Allegretti, veteran, is on this team, so he's likely to start at right guard. Your right tackle's Andrew Wiley versus Josh Connerly, that little bit of a battle. So, they've got some talent. Interestingly enough, Pro Football Focus ranked Washington's O-line 19th ahead of the 2025 season. I think they could be better than that, especially if Cosme comes back sooner rather than later. And then the final thing I'd be looking for is the battle for the 6th wide receiver spot. We spent a lot of time talking about all these different receivers, and frankly, it looks like Javon Baker, who we discussed for a moment yesterday, in some news, sounds like he moved up during the walkthrough to get ready for this joint practice. Mark Daniels posted the receivers working with May today are Stephon Diggs, Demario Douglas, Kayshon Boutte, Kyle Williams, Matt Collins, and Javon Baker. Baker's coming off a strong practice. Looks like he's moving up the depth chart with Kendrick Bourne out. So it looks like Baker's going to get that first shot at that 6th spot during this joint practice, and if he plays in the preseason game. He'll be the first dude to take that Kendrick Bourne spot. Can he hold on to it? Can he do enough? Is he going to get opportunities against the top corners of Washington? What does he do with those opportunities? Can Jalen Polk wrestle it away from him? Can Efton Chisholm make a little bit of noise? But right now, Baker, he's first in line to replace Kendrick Bourne, who's out for who knows how long. And he's been cooking a little bit, Baker. So can he keep that momentum going? Or can somebody kind of leapfrog him during this very important joint practice? And I would imagine those guys will play on Friday. What do they do on Friday? That wraps up this edition of Locked On Patriots. Reach out to me on Twitter at Nick C Radio. Don't forget to throw a comment in on the YouTube channel. And don't forget to help us out. Hit that like button and subscribe. That always helps. Thank you for being an everydayer, making Locked On Patriots your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Bets. We got Lee Sterling, Kevin Rogers, daily MLB locks. Can't miss football futures. Find Locked On Bets on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.